You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Hey everybody, thank you very much for hitting that play button. This is another episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Slash Cards. Slash Cards are the horror movie trivia game. Slash Cards are on sale right now at Amazon.com. There is a link in the show notes at DaveBullis.com. And remember, using our affiliate link helps out the podcast. And I want to say thank you to everybody who uses that affiliate link, everyone who has been promoting this podcast. I can't thank you enough. And also, speaking of the podcast, I want to mention the Suicide Squad special little project I've been working on will be up later this week. I just got hit by work and everything else all at the same time. And so I haven't forgotten about it. It's going to be up. It's going to be something new and fun and a little bit different. And I think you're all going to enjoy it a lot. And I want to ask this question out there. Where are you at with making your film? If you need some support for making your film, check out the Dave Bullis Podcast Filmmakers Facebook group. It's completely 100% free. It's just fellow filmmakers just discussing different things, different tips, techniques, and again, it's on Facebook, and it's completely 100% free. It's just a different support group because I'm a member of a lot of different groups out there, and I can tell you right now, I've seen them all just erode into a ton of crowdfunding posts and this post and that post. This is a little more structured. There's a little more point to what we're trying to do with that group. And when you do make your film, you can actually submit to the festival that my next guest actually runs. On this episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast, I'm talking with a man who started one of the largest and longest running indie film festivals out there today. The FirstGlance Film Festival actually started in 1996, right up the street from me right now in Center City, Philadelphia. All those many years ago, we're going to talk about all that stuff, all his career, making the film festival, getting the word out. How do film festivals work behind the scenes? We're going to find out. This is episode 144 with guest Bill Ostroff.
You're listening to the Dave Bullis Podcast.
Hey, Bill, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Hey, I'm glad to have you on, Bill. As I was saying before, online, you're a guy I've always wanted to have on the podcast. You run the FirstGlance Film Festival, huge online presence with FirstGlance, and also, people have, talked about it more and more as obviously, as you know, with film festivals, the longer they're around, the more the sort of more cash that they carry, if you know what I mean. The more, like look at Sundance, look at, Slam Dance, all those great film festivals. And, we're going to get to yours in a second. And I just want to ask, before we get to talking about the film festivals, Bill, I wanted to ask about, your career particularly and you getting started. So when you were first starting out, in the film industry, did you grow up always, watching movies and trying to make your own movies as a kid?
Yeah, it kind of was. I didn't have unfortunately, the technology was much different back then. We wouldn't really call it technology. It was celluloid. It was film. So it was a much more expensive hobby back then. And it wasn't something that I could really afford, but I was a huge moviegoer. I was a comic book reader. I've always been into the fantasy, sci-fi, horror, all that kind of stuff. And when I decided what I wanted to do in college, it was make movies. So I went to Penn State and then to Temple and learned everything I thought I needed to know to make movies, and then got into the real world and realized I didn't know anything. and started PAing and working. I did all kinds of stuff. It was kind of interesting. In high school, I was working for a local company shooting going out and shooting like weddings and sweet 16s and bar mitzvahs and things like that. And then I did get the opportunity to do some sort of industrial stuff and things like that, where I was like, okay, well, even though they're boring, they're a little bit more exciting than a wedding or a sweet 16 and having to spend, 14 hours with a camera on your shoulder. And back then, cameras weren't like cameras today. We were talking about like a 25-pound Betacam SP on one shoulder and a 40-pound deck hanging off your other shoulder and 25-pound belt to keep it running. So I definitely learned the nuts and bolts from like high school into college and learned how to use lots of different technologies and cameras, and it was a pretty interesting thing for me. I wanted to be a writer, I wanted to be a producer, I wanted to be a director. I didn't really know what I wanted to be, but I just knew that I wanted to be involved in movies.
So, Bill, obviously, because I live in Philadelphia and I live probably about 30 minutes away from Temple. Do you still keep in contact with Temple, and do they know that you run the FirstGlance Film Festival?
They kind of sort of do. One of the things, the main issues that I feel that I've had with Temple is that their alumni outreach is especially for the theater and film division, is really minute. I'll get the once a month in the mail, hey, can you support us? But when I turn around and ask them for support, it's kind of hard to get through the red tape and things like that. And being an alumni, you would think that there would be someone to talk to, someone to call, and say, hey, been running this film festival since I graduated Temple. Just thought you might want to know. Tell your students to come out. Blah blah blah. But it seems to be a hurdle for us, and it's sad because I know I have a couple of friends that have graduated USC and UCLA, and they have very, very active alumni. They have student film festivals. They have student film festivals open to the public. So it's like they do a lot more, I think. And, Temple back then was sort of the go-to film school after the big three, which is, UCLA, USC, and NYU. And it had a pretty progressive film school, but I don't know. I haven't been back to Temple in a long time, so I really don't know if they've kept up.
Yeah, that's something that I've talked about too with a lot of other guests, is not specifically Temple, but just their experience at college. And sometimes, obviously even with me, the schools are very eager to ask for like alumni donations, but when it comes time for like, hey, look, this is what I'm doing, there's not a lot of support. Where I went to school, our communications department was so bad, Bill, that they used to ask me to teach the classes for the communications professors, because they never picked up Premiere and they never picked up like Encore to make DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
They never picked up any of that, and it was funny. And I started asking, I'm like, am I gonna get like 2 paychecks for this? And they said no. Well,
right.
Dave, and even when I worked there was always a bunch of crap about we can't, the alumni association, blah blah blah. I mean, honestly, I feel you, Bill. It's so frustrating, but at the same time, when they ask for money, they want to know why no one's giving back. It's like, well, you're basically constantly asking and never actually helping at the same. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, exactly. And it's even funny to me that we have to go. We even have to go out of our way when it comes to like Twitter and Facebook to try to contact whoever the person is running the social media at the time. And you'd be surprised, considering, I would consider myself, and I think that most people in our industry would consider FirstGlance Film an influencer on social media, as far as the amount of followers we have and the engagement we have in the community. And we have to beg Temple to even tweet us out, and they'll retweet every once in a while. But you get like, well, if it's not a Temple, sponsored event, and I'm like, well, you have 2 Temple alumni that run the film festival, so it might behoove you to to help us out has had. But, you know, it is what it is, as they say in the biz.
Yeah, that's very, very true, Bill. I've heard that a lot in this business. It is what it is. So, you know, as you know, you sort of go out, you graduated from Temple, you know, you went out to LA and you started doing a lot of different, you know, productions and stuff. You know, what was sort of the impetus to start the FirstGlance Film Festival?
Well, FirstGlance just came out of my frustration again of there being, at the time, there were no independent film festivals in Philadelphia. There was I can't remember what they used to call it, the International Festival of World Cinema or something like that. There was that. There was like the Jewish Film Festival, the Asian Film Festival, and the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, I believe. Those were like the four, and they were all pretty huge events. And at the time, I had approached what was now the Philadelphia Film Festival, and said to them, hey, you know, there's nothing independent. Can I help you build sort of an independent film festival for local filmmakers, for filmmakers that aren't going to get into these big, what I like to call film preview events, because that's really what they are. They're not a film festival. They're just more of a film preview of what's coming in theaters in 3 or 4 months. And, you know, can we grab the main characters, the main actors and the producer and the director and have, you know, a Q&A after and charge people $75 at the door to get in. So at the time I was basically hanging out with 3 or 4 other Temple grads. They were, or not Temple grads, Temple students. And we had a small theater company and we were doing theater, musical theater at the Bourse building, which I don't think exists anymore, but it was on 5th and Market. And we used to do all these really cool little, you know, original musical theater productions. We'd run them for 4 or 5 weeks in this space. It was in the bottom of sort of a cabaret space in the Bourse. And I just came up with the idea, you know, why don't we just do something movie-ish? And I was like, I don't have anywhere to show my films. I have a couple of films I want to show that, you know, I tried screening at school. And, you know, when you screen something like that in front of your class, you never get the kind of reaction that you think you should, because you have a teacher that's, you know, that's teaching you in critical cinema, and I'm trying to build, you know, stuff that's sort of mainstream. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to see what I can do. And this was sort of before the internet. So basically it was more about just getting the word out through postcards and putting up signs at school and putting a couple of ads in the city paper and the Philadelphia Weekly. And the first year I basically spent my own money, and we had a 3-night event in the Bourse building in that cabaret space. And I showed my films along with 30 other local films. And that was sort of it, I thought. And then I was starting to get phone calls and emails about when the next one was going to be. I'd never really planned to have a next one. I just wanted to show my stuff. And what I realized was that there were people out there that wanted a real independent film festival. And that's sort of where FirstGlance was born, you know, back in 1996. And, you know, now we're, as of January of this coming year, it will be our 20th film festival in Philly. So it's pretty huge. And then after a couple of years, I decided I needed to move out to LA because there was no production going on in Philadelphia. And this was actually before M. Night started getting hot. So there really wasn't anything. The film office was sort of just there. It didn't really do a whole lot. There weren't incentives. You know, it was a different time. There really was no internet as we know it, you know, 18 years ago. So I decided to go up to California, and I was like, you know what, if I can start something in Philly like this, let me see if I can start something in LA. it took me a couple more years to kind of formulate how I wanted LA to work. We started in a really small space in Burbank, and in about 3 years moved into 200-seat theaters. And come April of 2017, it'll be our 17th event in LA, and we'll be at a 350-seat theater for 4 nights. It's going to be our biggest Los Angeles event in our history. And plans for Philly in year 20, where we have some really interesting ideas, and we hope that's going to be our biggest event as well. And we've been Philadelphia's independent film festival since '96, and we're going to continue. And we've been really successful at it. I mean, filmmakers love us; they come back. We have hundreds of alumni, thousands of alumni that contact us on a almost a daily basis sometimes to let us know what's going on with their films and their careers. And anybody who ever comes through FirstGlance, if they do get distribution, we end up putting it out there on social media. So it's one of the things that we've been doing since the very beginning, but the internet has made even easier for us to share that information with the masses.
And it's ties in with what I was saying before, about some of these bigger festivals. Well, obviously Sundance and Slamdance are some of the biggest in the world, but in my experience, the longer that a film festival, goes on, every year, 5 years, 10 years, etc., it builds its cash. And that way you can actually say, listen, you're submitting now to a festival that has a track record of 10 years. We've been going strong, 15 years. And now, like you just said, 20 years. And this adds a lot more to the festival than obviously if one that just started. And what I think the benefit of this is, like you just also touched on, is you have filmmakers that have started at FirstGlance, and they said, now we're able to build our career and keep in touch with all the things they're doing at FirstGlance. And I think that's how some of these things build upon each other, is because obviously you're giving them a space to show their movie, and then in turn, hey, that new hot filmmaker? Well, he started at this film festival. It's so similar to what Elliot Grove did at Raindance. Christopher Nolan, debuted following at Raindance, and that's why I'm so glad that again, like you said, you started it here in Philadelphia, because in '96, you're right, there was no real filming in Philadelphia. And now, if you actually flash forward to today, Bill, a lot of the productions that were in Philly have all gone to Pittsburgh because of just the taxes. And I mean, it's sort of this ebb and flow with Philadelphia. And believe me, sooner than later, Bill, I'm going to follow you out to L.A. and because really there is nothing left here going on in Philly, I'm telling you. But yeah,
I know. We've tried really hard. We've been big supporters of Sharon. We try to get filming done in Philadelphia too, because I want to be able to come back and actually work on these movies. I'm a DGA AD, and Philly. I would love for Philly to be my home base, but unfortunately, there's very little going on. And when that one production or two productions happens, it employs the people that actually need to work in Philly. So that's and it's a shame because it's very piecemeal. It's like if Philly were to create something like Atlanta, where there is no cap and the incentive is ongoing, you will never see it die. And I think that that's the key. And Atlanta has built up its community, its skilled crew members. It's building studios and stages all over the place in Atlanta. It also helps that you have a really, one of the most popular shows on television being shot there like 7 months out of the year, with The Walking Dead. And it's something that I know that Sharon has worked really hard to try to get a series in Philly. But again, the problem is that if you were to shoot a series in Philly, you really can't shoot from November through March because the weather. So you have this period that's really that doesn't really behoove most networks, because they want to start shooting August through December and then January through March, and you lose you lose a lot of your momentum in the wintertime on the East Coast.
Yeah, very true. That's why Hollywood, obviously was used to be stationed in New Jersey, and they finally moved out to Los Angeles because of the weather. Because you realized,
Right, right.
the weather out here from November to February, March, it's tough sometimes. It's tough to do a lot of things. Even October sometimes it gets really cold out here. And it's just it's just hard to do stuff, And again, putting a TV show in Philly. There's always something in Philadelphia, because some people have actually, asked me about, do they film here a lot? And I said they film here less and less each season. And I think last season, they weren't here at all. They just shoot the whole thing in LA.
Yeah.
But it would be tough to get. But again, I know the film office does whatever they can and try to get a series here. It's just, you're right. It's just tough right now. But again,
it is.
Again, I will probably be following out to LA sooner than later. But so as we talk about, film, FirstGlance, and just building this up and building up this great sort of reputation, where do you sort of see FirstGlance going within maybe the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's been something on my mind over the last few years because, 20 is a big sort of monumental year for us. And I really want to do something different and special and magical in Philly in year 20 next year. And again, it's rough because, we are a self-sufficient, self-funded film festival. We don't get corporate sponsorship. We don't have big companies or, big city grants coming in to help us. So it really is powered by the filmmaker and by the attendees. And that's how we've grown. And, it's like what I would love FirstGlance to be is an end-all be-all for filmmakers. We're looking into starting a social media marketing company for independent film. We've been doing it over the last year, sort of under the radar through Twitter, and it's been working pretty nicely. We've also, just last year, I've helped 4 crowdfunding campaigns raise over $100 million. It's $100 million. About what I was trying to say was $100,000. But I would wish it was $100 million. But about $100,000, including Film Threat, which we raised about $60,000 for with Chris Gore for his Kickstarter campaign, which we're really excited about because Kickstarter is going to help Film Threat come back next year, and we may have some things that we're going to be getting involved with next year with him, which is great for us because our expansion, what we're trying to find ways to expand into is, I know from the many years of FirstGlance, the many years of watching the landscape change, is that there are networks out there. There are SVOD companies, VOD companies, straight to DVD, that court me pretty much on a weekly to bi-weekly basis to ask us, hey, we want your product. I think the thing that indie filmmakers need to understand is that 99% of the films that true independent filmmakers make will never see a theatrical screen. That doesn't necessarily mean they can't make money. There's pay cable, there's subscription VOD, there's VOD services, there's syndication, there are, YouTube channels with, millions of subscribers that could get them, tens of thousands of views a day. And they may not necessarily make back all of their money, but it is considered legitimate distribution. And our goal with FirstGlance, and we're in conversations with a couple of YouTube channels and a couple of SVOD companies as we speak, is the possibility to syndicate that product, not exclusively, not taking the rights from the filmmakers. Basically, sort of a lease deal is, I guess, the best way to kind of place it in layman's terms, is that these companies want to lease your product for a certain period of time, and then you get it back. And I think that that's the direction that a lot of these companies are going in, because filmmakers that are making indie films are making them because they don't want to lose the rights to their product or their IP or their web series or whatever it is. And YouTube has sort of become too big for its britches. The amount of content that goes up on YouTube on a daily basis, you can't market yourself hard enough or well enough to get yourself those kind of views that used to happen 10 years ago when YouTube first started. So finding an avenue and finding the right distribution partners for FirstGlance and finding the right avenues so that it doesn't cost filmmakers any money, and it enables them to get onto platforms that are, that have cred, that have some sort of quality content, and not to downgrade YouTube. I mean, it is a great platform. It gets more eyes than any other platform out there, but you're fighting with cat videos. Your 15-minute masterpiece short film isn't going to be watched for 15 minutes. You're lucky if you can get them to watch your trailer. So there is that downfall of YouTube being too big. I think Vimeo is an interesting idea, but again, Vimeo also doesn't spend any money marketing. So it's still the independent filmmaker having to do it yourself. And DIY is a concept that's interesting and sort of outdated too, because there's not enough time in the day for any one filmmaker to actually do it themselves. And no matter what you do, no matter what you need to spend some money. There needs to be some money spent. You're not going to be able to market your film with no money. And I think that as far as independent filmmakers go, they should always think about, if they are crowdfunding, is some of that money should be put aside for marketing once you're done, and probably for film festival entry fees. It's another it's another rough spot, because I know that a lot of filmmakers get aggravated at entry fees for film festivals, but I try to explain to every filmmaker that 99% of the film festivals out there make no money. And the ones that you see on the big screen, the Sundances and the Slam Dances and the Tribecas and the Philadelphia Film Festival and South by Southwest, these are funded. I mean, millions and millions of advertising dollars and grants coming from, city, state, federal, car companies, vodka companies. I mean, these companies spend a lot of money because they know that there's going to be a type talent at these events. Now, the other 99% of the film festivals out there are run by an individual person or a couple of people, and many of them are legitimate. My biggest, I think, pet peeve over the last 4 or 5 years is sort of this quest for laurels thing that's going on, and the pop-up of all of these, I would call fake award type film festivals that aren't actually even film festivals. They're just a dinner, and you're spending your hard-earned money because you'll get a laurel. And it's sad, because you're never going to be seen by anyone. No one ever screens them. Yeah, they might be a $10 entry fee or a $15 entry fee, but again, you're only getting digital laurels. You're not going to sit in a theater and watch your movie with anyone, because no one's watching. And I've seen them pop up all over the place. And one of the things that we've been doing over the last 4 or 5 years with Film Freeway is, when Film Freeway first came out, you couldn't make the decision. Like, there was no checkbox to filter a film festival from an actual, just a film awards program. And we worked really, really hard with them so that there would be distinctive categories, because we feel that it's very unfair for filmmakers to be entering a quote-unquote film festival that isn't actually a film festival. And they pop up all over the place. Philadelphia has one, San Diego has one, Los Angeles has one, and I'm sure that if you do your due diligence and research, you'll probably find 50 or 60 of them, and they all look the same. They're all promoted the same. Their write-ups are exactly the same, and their websites are usually pretty shitty. But it's been aggravating, because I get filmmakers all the time. They're like, oh, I need a fee waiver. And I'm like, I would love to do that for you. But, one of the things that FirstGlance has always been known for is the quality of films that we show. And it's a huge process. We watch everything. Every film is watched by me. I watch every single film. And I've been doing it since year one, because it's FirstGlance, and we want the quality to be there, and I'm not just going to let anything through just to sort of let it through. Even people who have become friends of mine, they're like, hey, FirstGlance is coming. I'm like, yep, go enter. The idea of the ethics of the festival is that if I had to waive a fee for one person, I would have to waive the fee for everyone who asks. And if everyone who asks gets a fee waiver, I can't produce the film festivals. So to me, it is sort of a double-edged sword. And I know that a lot of people complain, oh, well, Sundance gives waivers or Slamdance gives waivers. I'm like, yeah, but Slamdance makes $250,000 a year in entry fees.
Mm-hmm.
And up until about 3 years ago, they showed in a coffee house. So, it's obviously not costing them $250,000 to produce their event. So it's been interesting how sort of the growth of the internet, the growth of sort of film festivals, and then this hybrid thing called a film award, which, unfortunately, big festivals will look at the laurels on your resume, but if it's like, the blah-de-blah film awards, like, what is that?
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill. I've seen some of these film festivals pop up, and it's kind of like what I was saying earlier about, sometimes, hey, it's the first year of, the, blah, blah, blah film festival, or maybe it's the second year. But that's what I was saying with something like yours, or, with your film festival, it holds more cash. And that way, people know, oh, this is a trusted film festival. I know what I'm getting involved in with the festivals that have an actual, history. They know
Mm-hmm.
that there's, a solid foundation there, and it's not just some people that are come by, okay, everyone gets a laurel, or everyone, everyone becomes the Critics' Choice Award, or, there's certain awards that everyone sort of gets now. I've noticed that there was a film festival I entered years ago, Bill, and they gave out the same award to like everyone who entered. It was, I forget what the hell it was called. It was something like the Critics' Choice Award, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" Thankfully,
Right.
I've never told anybody I've ever won it, because I'm like, probably 8,000 other people have won the same damn award for just entering. But yeah, just to take a step back, Chris Gore was on the podcast, and we were talking about, mentioned you briefly, and we also mentioned Film Threat. But I think Kickstarter is the, even when I was doing it, years ago, I think it is the future. And I think, honestly, the only thing I could see that could take it down is this: filmmakers who raise their funds and then never keep anybody in the loop about what happened. And I actually I've donated to campaigns run by people that I know, and they get all the funds, they get 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, whatever, and then they get the fees, it all goes through, and then you never hear from them again. And I'm sitting there going, man, these are the types of situations that are going to kill crowdfunding for filmmakers. And you know what? Bill, they never made the movie. So, like, for instance, I mean, and it's sad, man. It really is, because then it hurts it hurts legitimate filmmakers like you, myself, and everyone, all the other great people I've had on this podcast. It hurts all of us, because then people go, oh, I was burned one time on Kickstarter, so I'm never going to donate again. Yeah.
But I also think it's due diligence. I mean, look into it. I mean, here's the thing. I think if you are a filmmaker and you've made films, I mean, I did a crowdfunding for my own project about 4 years ago called Jedi Camp. I raised everything I needed plus a little bit more, which was great, which helped me to pay for some other outstanding production costs that I thought were going to come out of pocket, but ended up, being, greatly appreciative of the funders to fund it for me. But, my goal had always been is that if I get this amount of money, we are going to make this project. And I think sometimes people just throw a number out there and think, oh, well, if I get $35,000, I can make a feature film. And I'm like, no, $35,000 does not go far. And you have to look at it legitimately, I think, a lot of times. It's one of the things that me and Chris looked at because prior to this past year's Kickstarter for Film Threat, he had tried the year before and didn't make it. And, we sat down and had multiple meetings about what I think sort of the pulpit would be for us if we tried to raise money for Film Threat again, and where I felt like the sweet spot was, where I felt like, if you could make this amount, can you do this? And we sat down and we really budgeted it out to the dollar. And I think that was what enticed people to come back, first off, because, I mean, a lot of times if you run a failed campaign, people are like, well, they failed last time. Should I put my trust in them this time? And I think that I would say for every one project on Kickstarter and or Indiegogo, you have 100 that are really legitimate filmmakers trying to make their passion projects, trying to get stuff done. And, it's just like a filmmaker who enters a film festival and doesn't get into the film festival they want. You can't blame all the film festivals for not getting into one. So I think that there is that like sour taste in your mouth, but in most cases, people on average, I think as of right now, as of like the latest numbers, like $30 is about the average crowdfund donation. So unless you've really invested in something, like maybe as like an associate producer or producer on a project where you're spending a couple $1,000s and it's a huge amount of money, then I think, that's pretty shitty that you couldn't make that film, and that whoever, the project manager is, or the director of that film, what do they do with the money? And that's kind of sucky. But I think if you look at Kickstarter for the whole and Indiegogo and any of the other crowdfunders, then on the whole, the projects get finished. So I don't, it's hard. I think, you're always going to have bad apples and you're always going to have people trying to take advantage, but you can usually tell within their write-up and their video. And, I usually look at a lot of things before I support them. Especially through FirstGlance, because we definitely want to have a good relationship with filmmakers, but we also want to make them understand that we're pretty much an equal opportunity supporter of crowdfunding, and it's one of the reasons that we created the Support Indie Film hashtag back in the day, which is just, over the past year has just been gangbusters. It's amazing to me how many people are adopting the hashtag and using it on all media now. We're bigger on Twitter than we are anywhere else, because I feel like Facebook is dying as far as reach, and Instagram is becoming like every third post is an ad. But if you search Support Indie Film on Google, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And we're really proud of the fact that not only did we create the hashtag, but we also, if anybody wants to look, we use it every single day.
Yeah,
And I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
Yeah, and I think it's inspired a lot of people. It really has. So, yeah, we're excited to see where that part of the industry goes too.
Yeah, I actually I followed it myself, support indie film, and I use that hashtag whenever I'm going to tweet out the podcast at all, because I can see that people who are really out there doing things are using that hashtag, which is good. No one has hijacked it, stuff like and none of the film hashtags no one has really taken yet, like hashtag script chat or whatever. But I love the hashtag support indie film hashtag that you came up with. And you know what? I agree with you on Facebook, by the way. Facebook to me is because they want you to pay for everything now. They want you to pay to reach your own fan base that you've built up, and they want you to pay for this. And that's why I stick with, I stick with Twitter, Instagram, and now I'm getting more into YouTube. But I just, it's just Facebook. I'm just always like, man, I hate this whole network. And again, you have to pay. You have to pay to. It's like dealing with the mafia. You want something done? Fuck you, pay me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you spend all this time building your family, and then it's like, oh well, if you want to contact your family, now you got to pay us. And it really is an awful concept. And I think they would have been much better off. Especially for everyone who runs a small business, is instead of playing that kind of game, and I've said this to a lot of people, and most people agree with me. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I would rather pay them $3.95 or $4.95 a month to get all those people back, and just give me back my Facebook. So I'm willing to take a monthly. I will take a monthly subscription if I can talk to my 4,000 followers on Facebook and actually invite them to my events. And not be caught at 500. It's a really smarmy way to do business, I think. And to boost a post to get in touch with the same people that you used to get in touch with it's outlandish.
Yeah. It really is, and that's why I've tried to steer away from Facebook. Every time I want to close down my profile, just my main profile, just me, I always have an excuse why I have to keep it open because someone's trying to contact me or this, that, and the other thing, and I'm like, God damn it. Yeah. Because there's only a few groups I actually still use on Facebook, and they're mainly like podcasting groups, and the other half is film groups that actually there's a group, the groups out there, they hold some validation, you know what I mean? And there's actually some validity of some of the groups, but for the most part, if you're on a fan page and you want to get a hold of those 1,000 people, you have to just, you obviously have to boost the post. But yeah, I mean that's why again, and I'm also going to link to your Twitter and everything in the show notes, and also the hashtag support indie film. That way, people can find it. But as we talk more about getting into film festivals, I had some questions come in, Bill, that actually relate to FirstGlance. You want to take a few questions?
Sure.
This one is by the way, Whitney Davis. I want to say thank you for all the great questions. She actually sent one in, and I love this question, by the way, Bill. She said, "What can writers and directors do to set their indie film apart from everything else out there?" Wow.
Okay. I would say number one, and even though we're right now anti-Facebook and anti-Instagram, as soon as you come up with the idea or the title of your film, buy the web.com if you can. Start a Twitter page, start an Instagram page, start a Facebook group, and start to build your audience. Because the only way that you're going to make it stand out from others is if people know about it. And the issue now is because it's so easy to make a movie, and it is. I mean, people are making them on GoPros, people are making them on their iPhones, people are, you can go to Best Buy and for $450 buy, a Canon C5i, and you can shoot a movie. You could shoot it on your iPad. And that's the thing is there's so many ways of shooting them. And yes, they're movies, but are they films? And I make a distinction of like anyone can make a movie, but not everyone can make a film. And a film is a beginning, a middle, an end. A story something that's cohesive from beginning to end. And I think that, to make it stand out, there's a couple of things that you can do. And I would say, in your budgeting of time and energy, and in hopes of finding yourself a good graphic designer, because a good movie image, a good poster image, a good postcard image, something to put on your Facebook backgrounds, and keep it all consistent too. I feel that, like, for branding purposes, and I think that, a lot of filmmakers are like, well, I make a movie a year. And I'm like, well, that's great. You have to brand every single one of them, because until you're an actual name, nobody knows who you are. So you really need to brand each of those films, so that people know where to go, what to see, and then you keep people in the loop. I mean, it's similar in a way to a crowdfunding campaign, where from day one in crowdfunding, your goal is to get the word out, to get people to join you. And it's really like a snowball. You have one fan or two fans or three fans, and then suddenly those three become 9. And it's like that old commercial from TV where it's like that, you tell one person and then I tell one person, and then I don't remember, it's like a hair product or something, I feel like. But it was like an 80s commercial, and all of a sudden you have like 700 people on the screen in these little teeny boxes. So your goal is to find champions. And the great thing about what FirstGlance has been doing over the last few years is that we found a lot of champions, and you can find them very easily. You just hit support indie film hashtag, find our list, and that is a huge amount of supporters of ours. Skip Bolden and Patrick Russell and Paul Mackey and Russell Southam, and I mean, there's people from all over the world that follow us, and the reason they follow us is because we're real and because we share. And a lot of people on social media toot their own horn, and that's all they do. And social media, from day one, I've always learned social media is social. So if I retweet you, you will likely retweet me. And then it becomes a relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to become a close relationship, but if you like what we're doing and you retweet, well, then I'm going to look for stuff that you're tweeting and I'm going to retweet. So it's a community, and you're building your community. And for any writer or any filmmaker to stand out from the crowd, they need to create a brand. And to create that brand, you have to use social media. And right now, I would say Twitter is the best place to go, because Twitter is the only place that doesn't throttle you, that doesn't push ads. I mean, yeah, it pushes ads, but it doesn't push ads on you the way Facebook and Instagram do. But, create a great image. I think one of the things that make some filmmakers stand out, friends of ours like Jessica Cameron, is they push a certain envelope, like horror, and they continue to stay in that genre. So you have that ability. But if you're going to make all kinds of movies, well, then, you need to brand those. And I think that it's really important that you understand that social media is not a 9-to-5 job. It is a 7-day a week, 365 days a year, and you got to work at it. You got to learn how to get good at it. You got to learn the tips and tricks, and there's all little different things. You got to find champions, because you tweeting out, hey, come see the Dave Bullis podcast. If nobody retweets it, then nobody comes to listen. Yeah,
very, very true, Bill. And luckily, I have been very fortunate. People have retweeted it. But this question and your answer too, it's something that has come up before, and I'm always interested to hear everyone's answer. I've had on like Paul Petito from Script Gods Must Die. I've had on Jason Brubaker from Filmmaking Stuff, and the list goes on about how do you set yourself apart. And one of the things that I go back to of how you can set yourself apart is even before that. And one of the things that I have said on this podcast more so recently is I think the hallmark of our times right now is going to be, can you make a micro-budget film? Can you take a camera and probably 1 to 2 or maybe a couple more crew members and a few actors in a few locations, and can you make a gripping movie using all the locations and resources you have at your disposal right now at this very minute? and you can sort of test the waters of this movie by just like what you were just saying, uploading it to YouTube and just seeing, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to get a huge amount of traffic, but just to see if a few people can watch it, see if they give you a thumbs up, see if they give you any comments. And, if you have a built-in market prior to that, even if you have like a social media account prior to that, obviously use that. But honestly, I think that sometimes, Bill, people come into this industry with the wrong ideas and expectations. And I think sometimes
they definitely, they definitely do. I think, and I had it too. I mean, I came out of college, with, 5 feature-length scripts in the hand, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get, I'm going to become a screenwriter and blah, 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 blah. And, you come out to LA and you find out that almost every agency won't take an unsolicited script. So how do you get your script to an agent if they won't take an unsolicited script? And you get sort of in this catch-22 or rock in a hard place kind of thing where it's like, I have this great screenplay. I want to make it happen. How do I get an agent? Well, the only way you get an agent is via referral. And you don't normally get a referral from an agent. You get a referral from someone higher up. So how do you get a producer or a director to read your script? Well, if you send it to a producer, the producer is like, well, I can't read this because if sometime down the road, a film that I make is partially similar to yours, well, then you're going to sue me. Okay, so a producer won't read my script. A director, all right, how do I get my script in the hand of a director? Directors are too busy. They don't have time. Directors have 16 other people that work for them. So if you can even get it to the assistant of the assistant or a script reader, again, chances are it's never going to see the light of day because most script readers, as we all know, are aggravated screenwriters. And they want their script to be read, not yours. So there's a huge catch-22. There's lots of doorways and things that are locked. Even for someone like myself who's been out here for 15, 20 years, I still have, unless it's an upstart company and it's someone who says to me, hey, there's this upstart company looking for product, and they're small and they're looking for like $1 to $3 million feature films. Well, then I go to my friends that I've read scripts from. I'm like, hey, I have an avenue right now. It may close up in a year because if that small company ends up under the umbrella of something larger, like a Comcast Universal or a Paramount or a Sony, well, suddenly they can't take those scripts anymore because of lawsuits and the fact that they're, everybody's worried about, being sued about this, that, and the other thing. So there's this very small window of opportunity. And then if this company then develops a film and the film goes out and then it does well, then boom, Like, for example, 5 years ago, you probably could have gotten your horror script in the hands of Jason Blum. Nowadays, probably not. So there's that whole window of opportunity where, you come out of college and you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and you're like, oh, my God, I'm going to get this. And then reality hits you and you're like, holy shit, this is not easy. The stories of, Steven Spielberg, walking into the Universal lots and walking into an empty office and just setting up office, quote unquote. That would good luck getting through the front gate, and if you got through the front gate, just wait to get arrested, 100 feet in. So, I mean, it's a whole other animal now. And I think that the best way to do it now, and quite honestly, if you have a great script, pull a great scene from that script, something that you, with your abilities, can shoot. And it doesn't necessarily have to be you shooting it. Find yourself a good DP, somebody who wants something for the reel. Shoot that scene. Get that scene up, because that scene will show possible investors down the road. There are the chances of it going viral. I mean, slim. But, I can't tell you how many people contact me about, I want to make a viral video. And well, that's not really how it works. You don't go, if someone knew the formula to making a viral video, they'd be like a multi-trillionaire.
Yeah.
because there is no rhyme, there's no reason. You don't know why it goes viral. It's just it's 100 different elements to why something goes viral, and there's no rhyme or reason. It's just like there's no rhyme or reason, why an actor who is on their last dime suddenly gets the callback of their lifetime and for the next 10 years works in sitcoms. There is no real actual book that tells you how to do these things. I mean, there's hundreds of books out there that try to, but take those with a grain of salt, because you can write the greatest script, but if it can't get through a door, then it's just paper, or now it's just a PDF file. So
yeah, everything's digital, right?
You'd be surprised. I do work in the film industry. You'd be surprised at how much paper we still waste. But yeah, it's hard to differentiate yourself, and it's not something you're going to do right away. It's something that's going to take you years of work to do, and get yourself out there and put yourself in networking situations and go to local film festivals and watch what other people are doing. Because that's also another thing that I tell a lot of filmmakers, like, well, what do you guys accept? And I'm like, well, go to our YouTube page and look at all the trailers. You can see the kind of films we accept. Come to our film festival, and you'll see. I mean, I've even invited, enraged filmmakers who didn't get into our film festival. Like, why didn't we get into your film festival? And I'm like, look, come to it and see. And maybe you'll understand why your project didn't get programmed.
Do they ever take you up on that offer? Do they ever take you up on that offer?
I've had one, and they actually were apologetic afterwards, and they were like, "I get it." He's like, "I don't think my film would have played well on a big screen." And he goes, "And I know that I had sound issues," and I'm like, "See, no, there you go." But and on that note, with sound issues, I implore every independent filmmaker out there that if you're going to go make an independent film, please, if there's one person that you have to pay a sound mixer. Because yes, the sound might not be great on your computer when you play it in a small version, but imagine putting that up into a theater that has Dolby Surround or something of the like, and you're hearing this buzz throughout an entire 17-minute short film. That'll drive an audience crazy. So it's one of the things that it's my biggest pet peeve, and probably every time we do call for entries and every time we're doing our pre-screenings, I will put up a tip on Twitter. Please hire a sound person. They are going to be your best investment, because you cannot fix bad dialogue in post unless you're Lucasfilm and you have millions of dollars to do that, because it's really, really expensive. So that would be one thing that I would definitely tell filmmakers to make sure that they do. Even if that's come out of your own pocket, because in the end, it's going to come out of your pocket in post, or you're just going to be so aggravated that you can't figure out how to do the sound right on your Final Cut or your Adobe Premiere or whatever it is you're using, because the problem is that you didn't get good sound to begin with. And if you don't get good sound to begin with, you can't make it better.
Yeah, very true, Bill. Very true. I've had on Kelly Baker, who he runs Angry Filmmaker, and he's done all the sound work for Gus Van Sant's movies, and that's something he always, whenever he's doing a sort of film class or teaching sort of like a film seminar, he always says, "Trust me, guys. As a guy who works in film, he goes and whose specialty is audio. Trust me about this." He goes, "You have to have good audio." Because it's almost like everything they usually don't think about it until they need it, right? And it kind of ties in with what we're talking about with marketing. Most people don't realize they need it most people don't realize they don't have it until they need it, and it's
right.
It's like tying into that market. I mean, I've had people on here who said they've made movies And then all of a sudden they realize they're like, we don't have any presence. We have no media presence. We don't have a way to distribute this thing. They weren't even thinking about anything until, obviously they needed it. And at which point, it's probably, it's not only much harder, but it's almost like it's tough enough, but now you got to really sort of, climb, 2 mountains, because now you got to build it as you need it. And then you got to also, you're pitching to festivals, you're trying to get this done. You're trying to, it's just, you obviously, you've seen it before, as have I. And,
Yep.
But I think now, hopefully with, as I said before, with this podcast, I hope to not only use this as an education for other people, but also as an education for myself. And, I hope my goal is that every episode, somebody out there, if I can just help, one person, or one person finds this useful or whatever, then that episode's a success, But thankfully, more than one.
Oh, no, great.
But thankfully though, I've had more than it's been I've gotten a lot of excellent feedback since I started this podcast, and I'm really but again, it's just for that issue, man. Where I want this to be like a film school, where the teacher is a different teacher every single week. There's a different teacher who is telling you not theory, but actual practical advice based upon their years of experience actually doing it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've thought about it. There's like a school, I think, in Philly that does, and I think it's Heary Casting or something that does it. And they're always looking for like production management and courses like that. And a couple of years ago, I actually had contacted them and said, "Look, I'll come in and I'll show you. I'll show whoever. If you have the equipment, I will show people the nuts and bolts on how to build a film from beginning to end. I mean, on top of not just social media, but writing a decent script and getting real actors. Because I mean, the other thing is the getting your mom and dad to act in your film is probably the worst thing you could ever do. When there are plenty of actors out there that would do it for a good script. And, it's when you've watched, almost 20,000 independent films like I have, you see things over and over and over again that just are like, oh my God, it's like, amateur error, or you've gone into production too soon. Or you're like, well, I just want to make a movie. And I'm like, no, don't just, I want to make a movie. Make it the best movie you can, because you're going to waste your time and your energy and everyone else's putting together a product that is just going to end up on YouTube sitting there doing nothing, or wherever it ends up. A lot of times it ends up nowhere. I mean, it's still sitting on hard drives and, well, I mean, from our inception, it's still sitting on Beta SP and 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter, and filmmakers have, there's nothing they can do with it anymore. So, I think that, going back to branding is that, you have to think about the marketing, because as a filmmaker nowadays, you are your own marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, FirstGlance Film, we are our marketing, because we know how to do it best. And it shows. I mean, we have, 50,000 followers between Twitter and Facebook, and it's not a mistake. I don't buy my followers because I want real followers. I want people that are going to engage with us. So I think that's, it's a key. So it's definitely, it is a way to make yourself stand out, but on top of that, you got to make good product. And if you're not making good product, you're amongst the million other people making movies.
Yeah, there was a saying in social media that I once read that was with the invention of social media and how democratic it is, everyone owns marketing now. And it too, Bill. If you're on Twitter and you go to a restaurant and the service sucks and you hate the food, what do? You immediately go to Twitter and say, "Oh, this place fucking blows." And now everyone owns marketing, so all your followers.
I may not say it exactly that way.
I think the Philly has left you, Bill, because that's in Philly. That's how everyone talks. But
no, true,
no,
true.
I'm just kidding, but I'm just having good fun. But
I may say something like, "This John sucks," but I probably would not. I keep up.
Yeah, John.
But,
the
if you are more like, if you're more sly about it, sometimes it'll get you free meals and things like that. But, I have had my issues with companies, and, when you have the amount of followers that we do, they get in touch pretty fast. I have to say, it's become sort of a customer's always right sort of thing, but it's also become sort of like, I see it with Yelp too. You can't, I see restaurants that have hundreds of great experiences and 5 stars, and then you see 1 or 2 that have like 2 and 1 star, and I'm like, I don't know. This seems like the person and not the venue. And I think it's just like anything else. You got to do your due diligence. If you're going to look at the shitty, the shitty stuff all the time and the negatives, well, then you're probably not looking at it the right way. Yes, if the majority of things are negative, then yeah, maybe it's not something you want to purchase or buy or go to ahead of, if you know it already. But, every server can have an off day. Every bartender can have an off day. Every cook can have an off day. Every film festival can have an off day. And it's unfortunate. It's just the way it works. I mean, you're not going to get 100% from everybody 100% of the time. And you have to think about, putting yourself in their shoes just for a minute, just to kind of, maybe understand where they're coming from. And I think as a screenwriter, it's something you need to do, because what does complaining get you?
Yeah, very true. It's just a waste of time. Complaining is a waste of time.
It may get you free Dunkin' Donuts coffee, though.
Yeah. It's it might Bill, I wanted to ask too, have you ever approached Twitter about verifying your account at First Glance Film? Because I know they open up the verification process.
I'm actually talking with Twitter about it right now. Twitter is it's in a weird situation right now. It's trying not to verify too many people too quickly. They're trying to do they're more about verifying individual people at the moment. So TV and radio and movies and those kind of people and the big films and that kind of stuff. They verify that stuff pretty quickly. But because technically First Glance Films is not an individual, it's been a little bit harder. Now that they've started to verify the larger film festivals, though, we're like right on the cusp. We've been in conversations. I know, I already know the people that I need to talk to about it. And it's just a matter of, my goal is to try to revisit it when we hit 50,000. And I'm hoping that'll happen within 2017, because we tend to grow about 1,000 followers a month or so. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's something we're definitely looking into. We don't know what verification is going to actually do for us. I mean, I've talked to people that have gotten verified, and they're like, well, it gives us more there's more sets of valuable information that you can cull from Twitter analytics and things like that. But otherwise, they say it's not like they've seen a massive amount of new people jumping in, or they're still having to do the same amount of work to build their communities. But yeah, I mean, it'd be cool to be verified. But business-wise, I'm not exactly sure what it would do for us. But yeah, it's definitely something I've looked into. I've also looked into Facebook verification, but I don't know. That's not going to do us any good anyway. I mean, we put up a post on Facebook, and of our 4,000 people, 35 see it. I mean, that's awful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I've actually tried to get Twitter verified. They've turned me down 2 times, so now I'm just going to sort of put it by the wayside. And it's something that I thought that, at least I could. I thought there was going to be more of a process to it, but it was basically just like, right. No, we can't verify it this time. And yeah. I gave all external links, not from my website, and I was like, well, I gave it a shot. Because so other people, oh well. But
I'd much rather be an Oscar nominating film festival than a verified.
Yes, I concur. I'd rather that those are the good victories. as we talk about, all these victories, we talked about, your career and everything like that. And, I just want to say, Bill, it has been, great talking to you about, all of this stuff, because again, because indie film is changing so much,
Oh God, yeah.
And it's just good that, we're able to sort of, again, people who have their finger on the pulse of what's happening, people who, can talk about, micro budget filmmaking and all the good things. And obviously, then you get, your budget grows, piecemeal by piecemeal as an independent filmmaker. The idea is you make a film for, micro budget, let's say 1,000, and then you can build into others, bigger budgets as you sort of get, more cash, no pun intended, towards yourself, because again, you're trying to, always further your career. Because, Bill, we've been talking for about an hour now, about an hour and 5 minutes. And I wanted to ask, in closing, Bill, is there anything that we didn't sort of talk about that maybe you wanted to talk about? Or do you have any sort of closing thoughts to put a period at the end of this whole conversation?
I think, the one thing that I think that we maybe glossed over quickly is the fact that, every filmmaker should make their film. It's just that they have to understand that not every film festival is going to accept their stuff, because every film festival has limitations. One of the things that we've tried to do over the last few years, which we think has been really successful, is we added a short online contest that sort of like goes along with our film festival. So we invite between 20 and 40 other films, shorts, that we can't program because we don't have the time to program them, into an online portal, which is safe and secure. It's not like people can share your movie. People come in and they watch and they vote, and then, that winning film ends up in our next film festival. So we've been trying to expand our reach, both online and offline. We're really close to potentially doing, and it depends on logistics and things like that, but we're hoping with our new partner in Philly, the Painted Bride Art Center, that we're going to start doing monthly what would we call it? Sort of short film networking mixers. And we're looking to do possibly the same thing out in LA on a monthly basis, to allow filmmakers a great screen and a great venue to come out and show their film in a non-competitive and a non-judgmental way. So sort of like an open mic night in a way. So we're looking into expanding there. We're also talking to lots of, again, we talked about this in the very beginning, VOD and other YouTube channels which have millions of subscribers, to potentially create a FirstGlance channel. YouTube, we have almost 1 million views, and we have almost 1,000 subscribers. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we can then offer independent filmmakers an opportunity on our own channel. So, we keep on building and keep on moving forward, and we try to stay with the technologies, stay up with the divergence of all the technologies together. So, we just keep on trying, and we change every year, just like filmmaking changes every year. And that's always been our goal. We don't want to be stale and stagnant. We want to continue to grow. We want to be able to give value back to filmmakers for their entry fees. We want to be one of the best film festivals out there. Having done, as of this year, 38, producing 38 film festivals, and having watched probably by the end of next year over 20,000 films, I would say that we're probably one of the only film festivals that does that. Go talk to the Slam Dance and Sundance directors. I'll bet you none of them watch any of these movies that are entered. So, you have somebody with an eye for indie film watching. And I think that it's something that will bring more confidence to a filmmaker, knowing, oh, well, it wasn't watched by some 17-year-old kid in high school because they raised their hand in the class and said they would volunteer. It's being watched by me. And, they can feel free to IMDb me, LinkedIn, whatever, to connect with me to see my experience, if they don't believe it. before the films in our festival go to the screening committee, they go through me, and they're watched by me first, and then they're dropped into the next level. So yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing experience, and I would love to be able to offer more to filmmakers down the road, and it's something that we're working on pretty much every day. So if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But we're going to keep on keeping on, and bringing great films to great audiences on both coasts.
And those are some great ideas, Bill, especially about getting the YouTube channel, because I think that is a great avenue that this direct sort of pipeline, and I think that is phenomenal as well. And it's something you touched on too, where not every film is going to have a theatrical release. But then again, maybe some of these films shouldn't go theatrical. Maybe they should go, to YouTube or somewhere else. And it's something Jason Brubaker too, who's been on the show, talks about, because he says sometimes he just says put a big buy now button on or put it on YouTube or Vimeo or something like that, and go that route. And again, though, Bill, I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And again, like I said, you're somebody that I've wanted to have on this show for a while now, and I'm finally glad that you could come on. And what are some of the links where people can find you out online?
Oh, yeah. So you can find us at Facebook at FirstGlance Film Fest with an S, I believe. You can find us on Twitter at FirstGlance Film. You can find us on YouTube, I believe, at FirstGlance Film Festivals. You can find us at firstglancefilms.com. And you can find us once a year in Los Angeles and once a year in Philadelphia at our film festivals. We're hoping to be back at the Painted Bride in 2017. And our goal is we're finalizing the Crest Westwood in Los Angeles for next year. So, come out and see what we do. And see the kind of films that we show, and see why we have the reputation that we do, and see why 97% of the feature films that we do screen, both feature and documentary, end up with distribution. I have a very keen eye. How else do you get a keen eye but with experience? And, I've marketed myself to, distribution companies for the last few years, and, basically said to them, you're not going to find someone who's watched as many films as I have.
Yeah, and you get better by doing, and again, like you were saying, Bill, when you watch so many films, now you're exactly what to look for. Again, that they have your distinction between films and movies. Films have a beginning, middle, and end, and there's some production value to them, and I'm sure sort of I'm sure you probably know within a few maybe 30 seconds to a minute, you probably know if this is a professional or an amateur sort of production, right?
Yeah. I mean, but that doesn't necessarily take away from the value of the project. I don't want people to think that if it's an amateur film, we don't put it in, because we do student film.
I worded that a little wrong. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
I should have said maybe one that would get in and one that wouldn't get out. You know what I mean? Like one that would.
Well, yeah. Well, I've also learned what my audiences are interested in, so I also look at it as an audience member, and I look at it and going, would First Glance audiences want to watch this? And I think that it's something that as a filmmaker too, once you make your movie, you have to think about that and look at it from an outsider's perspective. Would an audience on a big, huge screen want to watch what you just made? Mm-hmm. So, but again, I don't want anyone not to make their film, because you never know. You never know that the chemistry that you pull together in a group might turn into something bigger, and you might work together year after year after year. It's what Trauma does. It's what Kevin Smith did for years. It was like the same group of people. Go back to the 60s and 70s and 80s, and you got Mel Brooks, and everyone that he worked with, it was almost always the same people. So you will potentially learn things and network and find friends that potentially, maybe if you're not going to grow, they do. And, hopefully they take you with them on their journey, or it's you that goes on the journey. But it's important to have those kind of cogs and those people around you, because if you think that filmmaking is a do-it-yourself industry, it certainly is not.
Yeah, very true, Bill. And it does take it's a Spanish proverb. It takes a village to raise a child, and each film is like a child unto itself. And Bill, it's been absolutely phenomenal talking to you. Everyone, I'm going to link to all of Bill's social media channels in the show notes, and his website and all, where you can find him out on Facebook and Twitter and on YouTube. And again, DaveBullis.com. Twitter, it's at Dave_Bullis. Bill Ostroff, I want to say thank you very much for coming on, sir.
No problem. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. I will talk to you soon, Bill. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Find Dave at DaveBullis.com. Please make sure to subscribe and share the podcast.